Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ask Huda. I'm your host, Jimmy Al-Rashid. And I'd like to welcome back Sheikh Muhammad Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for being with us today.
Wa jazakum.
Okay, today's episode is a special one. Like we promised, we're going to be going just through your email questions and won't be able to take any of your telephone calls, so please don't try to call in. You won't be entertained today. If you do want to send emails, our email address is ask@huda.tv. Sheikh, let's start with a question from Brother Muhammad from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He says, an uncle of mine settled down in the United Kingdom about 25 years ago. He recently passed away there. His wife and his children really accepted the faith of Christianity, and they grew up like this. He said recently they have returned to the Muslim country, the country of the birth of her husband and the children's father. He said the children have indicated a likeness to learn more about Islam, enter into the fold of Islam too. He wants to know, what's their situation? Are they seen as Muslims because their father was a Muslim, or are they seen as reverts or new converts to Islam?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyhi wa Mustafa Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. I praise Allah and I seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is the truly guided one, and whomsoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. And I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is His last messenger. Many Muslims, once they immigrate to the West, they are taken by shock and awe. They see the light and the glitter of this life, particularly concerning marrying to non-Muslims and living with them, and they don't look at the consequences and the results of having children, and how will they end up raising them, and what kind of faith will they take, just in case if the father dies or if there is a separation. The issue of marriage and separation in the West is like having a meal. It's that easy. But for Muslims, when we marry, we do not plan for divorce nor separation. Once you make your final selection based on the elements that Allah the Almighty have provided for you and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have advised you with, that means this is going to be your life mate forever, until the end of this life. Not only that, we plan to have them as wives in the hereafter in paradise, as the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us. Divorce is permissible once life becomes impossible, but it's not the only solution. But in the West is different. They can just file for a divorce over any fight, dispute, or any argument. And this is something, a reality that we see. It's not some fiction or exaggeration. This is a reality. That's why I advise every Muslim before getting married to think thoroughly about the results. Is it just about liking the look of a girl, the blue eyes and the blonde hair, or the person is eloquent or outspoken, and others just get married to apply for paperwork for residency? All of these factors do not really count, are not considered. The most important factor is, what if you have children? How are you going to raise them? How will they grow up? Are they going to become Muslims? Are they going to become righteous servants to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or just Muslims by the name? So this is a very crucial factor that we have to consider before making this decision. And that's why that will take us to the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that a woman may be married for one of four things, four attractions, four glitters. The first one is her beauty, her family lineage, her position, her wealth, and finally her religious commitment. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam stated a fact: all these factors are considered very much in the mind of every person who's looking for a life mate, whether male or a female. But the Prophet ﷺ said the most important factor is religious commitment. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand me and think we're talking about that you don't have to consider any of the previous factors. But I mean, above all, there has to be a religious commitment. If you find a woman who's very pretty and has a great family lineage, and she's wealthy, and most importantly, religious, then she's the best choice if there's chemistry and you guys get along. And of course, after you pray istikhara. But if she has the above three, but she's not religiously committed, nor is she a Muslim at all, then in this situation you have to reconsider your choice several times. I'm talking about experience. I do have cases almost every single day. People, they rush in making this decision. And once they get married and their wives get pregnant and they have children, they reconsider what they did and whether it was right or wrong. But it's too late. There is already a child. And now you have to make certain that you stay with this woman, no matter how is her behavior, simply for the sake of your children, so that they will be brought up and will grow as believers. Because what happens is when you marry a non-Muslim in a non-Muslim country and you file for a divorce, the kids are totally hers. Okay? Then for any argument, she can file for a lawsuit against you, put a restraining order. You will be deprived from seeing your children.
You can't even see your own children.
And perhaps you would only see them going to church on Sundays. These are your children. One of the most important reasons of marriage in Islam is to leave behind a godly offspring who would pray for you after your death. That's your strategy in this life, to pile up as much good deeds and righteous acts as you can. And once you die, all of that will come to an end, except through several acts. One of them, actually three things, as the Prophet ﷺ said. One of them is leaving behind a good son or daughter who would pray for you. A waladin salihin yad'u lah. When you be deprived from that, this is a great loss. The most important and the greatest investment in life is in your children, in your continuation, in leaving behind a godly offspring. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. So when you rush and you make this crucial decision based on what you call it first-time love, this is a fake factor. Soon it will change. This love could come to an end through the first fight. It comes to even fist fight. It's not only prohibited in the Western law, it's prohibited in Islam as well. Before even these laws and bylaws were stated by the modern civilizations. So before that, think about who's going to be the mother of your children. Not just your lovely wife, not about bed, not about beauty, but about a package. And there are more important elements than just the beauty. If you find along the elements which are essential and crucial, the beauty, that's perfectly fine. Proceed on. We're having a situation here where a man married 25 years ago, a non-Muslim. He died and he's leaving behind non-Muslim children. Before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will be asked about them. Allah the Almighty says, you're responsible for yourself and for those who are under your guardianship, your wife and your children. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. All you who believe, protect yourselves and your family members. So your family members are your responsibility to protect them against the fire of hell, of course. Not just yourself. Alhamdulillah, for some people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps them out and makes it easier for them and casts faith and iman in the heart of their spouses, whether in their life or their death or sometimes after divorce. This is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you don't have anything to do with it. It just came as a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't get any credit for that. So if the children came to the family after the death of the father, the family has to try to refix what the father broke of leaving behind children who have become non-Muslims, and deal with this widow, who one day was their son's wife, and with his children, nicely, kindly, with Islamic rules and regulations, to show them gentleness, to attract them more and more to Islam, at least to protect this person from the punishment. In addition to, it is best to introduce Islam in the best format to a non-Muslim, because the Prophet ﷺ said, if Allah guides through you one person, that's indeed better for you than the entire world and what it contains. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, في Surah Al-Baqarah, وَلَا تَنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ وَلَأَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ. Then he followed that by saying, وَلَا تُنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَالْمَغْفِرَةِ بِإِذْنِهِ. This ayah is a great bylaw in that regard. In the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us, the men, Muslim men, not to marry of the disbelievers, of women. And it is better if you have a believer who's even a slave than a free, pretty woman if she's a disbeliever. Somebody will say, but exempted from that the people of the scripture. Absolutely true. With a very serious and important condition that most of us neglect and ignore nowadays, which is al-muhsanat min alladhina utul kitaba min qablikum. Al-ihsan means chastity. A woman who's chaste, pure, modest, does not have a relationship with another guy outside marriage relationship, which is very rare to find in the West.
So this is for the Ahl al-Kitab, you're saying the woman has to be somebody who's chaste.
Absolutely. So if you find a woman who did not have a boyfriend, did not get involved in a sexual relationship or going out with men, because this is very normal in the West.
That's right,
That's something that if one's daughter is 16 and she does not have a boyfriend, the counselor at school will give the father a buzz and call him to the school and say that your daughter has a problem, because till now she does not have a boyfriend. We all know what's going on, and that's why we have to think smartly and look further. Do not look beneath your feet. As some people say, do not be like a grass eater. Cattle, they just look for the grass beneath them. But the believer is smart and intelligent, and he always aims high. Before doing anything, he thinks, why am I doing that? What is the purpose of it? So he changes the regular acts, the lawful actions, into acts of worship. Through getting married, through having children, through raising them. These are my assets to paradise. Through eating, drinking, sleeping, working, earning, spending, all of that. These are lawful acts. I can convert them simply to be acts of worship through having a sincere intention behind each act to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with them, to strengthen my iman, to stay strong with the Muslim company, and so on. So the verse says, do not marry the disbelievers. And we said with the exemption of Ahlul Kitab who are muhsanat, chaste. Then the continuation is وَلَا تُنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا. And do not give your daughters or your girls in marriage to the disbelievers. Period. That covers any person who is non-Muslim, even if he is a Christian or a Jew. Because the scholars said the purpose of that is because normally the children follow the faith of the father.
The father, that's right.
But somebody would say, well, then I may proceed on. But if there is an obstacle, or obstacles actually, and barriers from fulfilling this, and you know that for sure, that your kids, in case of separation, and in case of death, would not follow you, and you don't have any law to back you up, or to support you, then you have to reconsider all of that.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, we had a couple of questions from a sister from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. She says, I'm a 16-year-old sister living in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. My question, she says, is regarding non-Muslims and interaction. She says, what if I should meet non-Muslims who say very harsh things about Islam, unacceptable things about Islam in front of me? Their language is very irresponsible and disrespectful. How do I go about dealing with them? How do I go about giving them advice? And how do I go about correcting what they say?
Of course, number one, that depends on the condition and the sight seen. where did this happen? If that happened on a Muslim soil, then there are several things that could be taken in consideration. Number one, in order, according to the hadith, that everyone is responsible for changing what's wrong according to his or her capacity. Number one, by the hand, which represents authority and power. These people have to be turned to the law and authorities to be punished for that if it is proven that they have said that deliberately and they did not respect the faith of others. Since we don't do that, and Allah in the Quran forbade us from addressing other than Muslims and those who invoke other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though they are non-Muslims, simply not to turn around and insult Allah, astaghfirullah, or address our faith with foolishness. So since we don't do that, if they do it, they should be treated in accordance with their crime. That's number one. If it happens, whether in a Muslim soil or a non-Muslim soil, and I don't have the authority, then I must condemn that verbally by saying, hey, you must stop it, this is wrong. And you complain about it, and you try to stop it by every means. Because now you're addressing my holy, sacred belief. Whether in a Muslim soil or a non-Muslim soil, that has to stop. What if a person is being persecuted in prison in a non-Muslim soil, under the rule or an oppressive regime or whatever? In this condition, the least should be observed, which is denouncing that, not necessarily by plugging your ears, but trying not to hear that, not to respond to it, not to pay attention to it, while disliking and hating what's been said. So the 3 steps should be consideration according to where and how does it happen.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, the second question from the sister. She says that in Islam, do we actually have any psychological or moral support or services for Muslims? If a Muslim needs moral or psychological support, is there any remedy in Islam for these kind of illnesses?
Absolutely. Examine the beautiful ahadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the 2 sound collections, Al-Bukhari and Muslim, which address the issue of the brotherhood. And when I said the brotherhood, it applies to the sisterhood as well. When the Nabi ﷺ says, Al-mu'minu lil-mu'mini kal-bunyan yashuddu ba'duhu ba'da, the example of the relationship, the bond between the believers is like a single building, that it's not separated, one single building, strengthening one another. He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, من فرج عن أخيه كربة من كرب الدنيا فرج الله عنه كربة من كرب الآخرة. In another narration, but let me translate that first. Whosoever gives a relief to one of his Muslim brothers, it doesn't have to be your wife, your sister, your son, your daughter, any Muslim, and give him a way out of his hardship by either helping him out to settle his debt or advising him. Sometimes we spend a lot of time over the phone because it makes people feel comfortable when they're rightly guided, when they ask. It gives us headache and pain, and a lot of times some people consider it a waste of time, but we enjoy that. Why? That's too in the account of our good deeds. Because whenever you pay an advice, give a moral support, psychological support, help by any means, and the help does not have to be a material help or a financial help. In the several ahadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, when somebody said that I don't have the monetary means to give any charity, and Nabi ﷺ said, hasn't Allah made for you things to give in a charity other than money? Like what? He said, helping somebody to get on the back of his ride, to mount his ride. This is a charity. Or helping him out to load his belongings on the back of his ride. That's a charity. Once you meet your Muslim brother or sister with a cheerful smile, that's a charity. We're talking about the psychological help and relief. And removing the harmful things and hazardous things from the road of people, that's a charity. Somebody said, what if I can't do any of that? He said, then help somebody to manufacture things or do something for somebody who cannot do anything. He said, what if I cannot even do that? He said, then at least do not harm others. Stop your harm from reaching others. So we're invited and we're called upon to help one another financially, physically, materially, psychologically, moral support. It's a fact. In the other narration, The Prophet ﷺ said, and whosoever helps somebody to give him a relief out of his burden and out of his stress, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him a relief both in this life and in the hereafter. Kurba is difficulty, is hardship, is severe distress. So one is definitely in need. And that reminds me with the Prophet ﷺ setting the best example, the best role model, not only to Muslims, but to the entire mankind. And that's why I recall what I believe it was Bernard Shaw, the English writer, who said about Muhammad in his book, that if Muhammad was still alive today, he would have the capacity to solve all the world problems while he's taking a cup of coffee. This is a man who succeeded on every level, and he's a man who can lead the world as of today. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ setting the example. He entered the masjid and he sees one of his companions is in a great distress. It looked on his face that he's very upset, he's very grieved, he's very worried. And Nabi ﷺ said, "Ma yuhzinuk?" What's worrying you? What's making you sad? So he said, "Ya Rasulullah, هموم لزمتني وديون غلبتني." I'm so worried always. I'm also drowned in debt. I'm overcome with grief, worries, frustrations, and I'm drowned in my debt. Well, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, had he had the financial capability to help him out, he would have done so, as he always did, or called in his companions to help him out financially. But what if he doesn't? He would say, "I cannot do anything for you." No. He advised him with the following. He said, "Let me teach you a dua, an invocation, a supplication, that if you keep repeating in the morning and in the evening, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will settle your debt and will relieve your burden, will give you a way out of your distress." He said, "Certainly, Ya Rasulullah." So he taught him the beautiful dua of Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wal-ajz wal-kasal, to the end of the dua. This companion, Abu Umama, may Allah be pleased with him, said, "It was a few days. I observed saying this dua in the morning and in the evening. But look, he trusted every statement that the Prophet ﷺ uttered. It was a few days. I repeated this dua as the Nabi ﷺ instructed me. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala settled my debt and removed my distress. Wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir." And Allah is able to do all things. So if you cannot help financially, physically, then at least moral support by making dua. Some people belittle the power of dua and they say, "I cannot do anything." No, you can do a lot. As a matter of fact, the most important mean of help is not financially, but through invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to deliver His help, is through making dua, an invocation. Because when you make dua for somebody else, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appoints an angel who says, "O Allah, respond and give him likewise." So if you're making a dua and one of the purest creations, an angel, is saying, "Ameen, O Allah, respond," then this dua is most likely to be answered.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, we had a question from Sister Fatima about making wudu. Now she's saying that a time for salah is just ending. So say a particular salah, for example, it's just coming to the end. She has no time to actually make wudu, but she can make tayammum very quickly to get this salah in the time that she's supposed to offer it. Is she allowed to make tayammum, Sheikh?
I would consider this question an extremely important question.
Jazakallah khair.
Because it does not just deal with the issue of tayammum and making wudu. We will elaborate on other related issues, such as number one, time is very crucial when it comes to the prayer. Because the ordainment of the prayer is not just related to offering the prayer. Rather, it's also related to offering the prayer on its fixed time. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. So the whole statement is indivisible, inseparable. As-salah has been ordained on the believers on fixed times. And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked once, "What are the best deeds?" He said, "The best deeds ever is offering the salah on its earliest time, لِوَقْتِهَا, on its time, proper time, after the adhan has been called, after the time is entered, you offer the salah. Well, but there are some conditions where the person, for instance, is traveling, stuck in the traffic, or other several conditions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not exempt anyone from offering the prayer, even if you're traveling, even if you're sick. So there has to be an alternative. And we know that if you're traveling, you shorten and you join or combine two prayers at the time of either one of them. What about if you are in town, you're in downtown and you got stuck in the traffic? What do you do? Or you woke up late and there is only 3 minutes before the time of the current prayer is out and the time of the new prayer enters. What do you do? We see the opinion of the vast majority of the fuqaha, al-jumhur. They say in this condition there is a conflict of interest between the time and the tahara, or the purity. So the jumhur, or the vast majority of the scholars, always give priority and superiority to taking care of the tahara. So they say, even if the time is out, you must perform wudu, and you should not seek tayammum, which is striking by your hands on a clean place which have dust or soil, tahir, then wiping on your face after you clean up your hands or palms. That's tayammum. Okay? It is prescribed in the case of the absence of water, number one. Or in the case of there is water but enough for drinking and cooking. If I make wudu, I would waste it. I need to survive. Or there is water and I'm not capable health-wise, physically, to use it because the person is ill or is burned or any other health reasons that would prevent the person from using the water. Or there is water, but if I go out to bring the water, there is some serious threat, a life threat. So not only the absence of water, okay, none of these conditions is available here. But there is another case, which is, there is water, but if I use the water, I will waste the time, because all what I need is just to offer the first rak'ah, so that after the ruku' of the first rak'ah, the whole prayer considered as was done in its proper time, which is from A to Z. Of course, it's not the best time, but at least we prayed it before the time of the next prayer has entered. So the Jumhur give precedence to the tahara, the purity. They say you must make wudu as long as there is water. Similarly, in the case of ghusl, janaba, etc. But Imam Malik, may Allah have mercy on him, the Imam of Al-Madinah, otherwise gives precedence to the time over the tahara. So that's why you might hear two conflicting fatwas. And some say, go ahead and do tayammum and catch up the prayer before the time is out. Or do tayammum instead of performing ghusl to catch up the prayer before its time is out. So accordingly, I just presented the two opinions, the opinion of Al-Jumhur, which they give precedence to the time, to the tahara, that you must make the tahara regardless. And Imam Malik gives precedence to the tayammum, to the time that you must catch up the prayer before its time is out, even if you have to do tayammum while the water is available and you're capable to use it for the sake of catching up the prayer in its proper time.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, with that answer, we're going to take a short break and inshallah return to you in a couple of minutes. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ask Huda. Just to remind you, this is episodes all about your emails. I won't be able to take any of your calls, so please don't call in. If you want to send an email to us, our email address, as usual, is askask@huda.tv. Brother Muhammad Sheikh from Nigeria sent in two questions, and they're slightly related. The first one he's asking, he says in Nigeria, several people, family members, when someone passes away, they on the 3rd day, the 7th day, and 40th day, they invite people to the house for a ceremony, whether that includes reading Quran or sitting together having food to commemorate or to go through that person's death. Is this allowed?
Well, all of that is known as cultural traditions, which in reality have nothing to do with the religious practices. As we explained before in details, the Prophet's behavior towards death and the person who died, whether immediately, soon after their death, or after the burial, or even after a while. So none of that falls in the category of the Sunnah. So it is totally the opposite. And I would have to raise a question, which is, why do we do that? The answer immediately will be, with providing some benefit to the dead person. No, it will not reach him, simply because you're taking the wrong access, the wrong road. This is no entry here. The charity which you're offering right now would not reach him because it went through an act of innovation. The best way to benefit the dead person is like, when people mourn their deceased. Mourning is fine. And Nabi ﷺ cried for the death of his son. He cried. So crying, feeling sorry is okay. But exceeding the limit, pronouncing awful words, objecting to Allah's decree, in reality would not help the dead person. Rather, it would hurt him if he did not state in his will that you guys should not do anything that displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they think that they love him so much and they're providing some benefit to the dead person, and in reality they are harming him while knowing not and perceiving not. So similar to some people's tradition, on the Eid day, the day of delight, the day of celebration, the day of joy and happiness, they wear black and they take the whole crew, the family members, to have breakfast and eat certain food at the graveyard. And others, whenever they cook a special food that the dead person used to like, they take it and enjoy it at the graveyard. This is totally out of context. And Nabi ﷺ allowed us to visit the graveyard, and he ordered us to do that frequently because it reminds us with death, not to benefit the person who's dead, not to provide for him the food that he used to like. They don't eat, they don't drink, they're busy with something else. They're too busy with something else. If they would have the chance to speak, they would tell you, you guys must follow strictly the Quran and the Sunnah. Nothing would save you. That's Nuh's ark in this life, the Quran and the Sunnah. And all of your acts concerning the commemoration of the dead of a person, an ordinary or a holy or a sacred, are all fake, are all innovations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you responsible for it. So your claim is utterly defeated, and your excuse is totally refused. So based on that, let's go back on the track and follow the Sunnah. It would definitely suffice you to say, Allahumma fillah, Allahumma arham, pray for him, or give in charity on his behalf, or the food that you cooked, you distribute on his behalf, and you give the reward of his charity to him, or you perform Hajj or Umrah on his behalf. All of that is guaranteed, as long as you intend it from lawful sources, it would reach the dead person. Besides that, that's in vain.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we had a question from Brother Ramzi. He says, if a person unknowingly has done less than the required number of tawaf while performing some parts of his Hajj, this is the Umrah and the Hajj, he remembers later on, what does he do in terms of compensating this, Sheikh?
If any person, while performing Hajj or Umrah, performing Tawaf or Sa'i or praying, and he or she is confused concerning the number of rak'ahs, the number of circles, the trips, the number of the Sa'i, the trips between As-Safa and Marwa, then you should always consider the lesser. فَلْيَبْنِ عَلَى مَا تَيَقَّنْ, and the yaqeen is the lesser number. Then increase or make up the number until you come to the complete course, which is 7 rounds of tawaf and 7 trips of as-sa'i.
And what if somebody, after they've left Hajj and they've gone back to their home country and they have doubts about this, like the brother I think seems to show these doubts now, what does he do in this situation?
Let me tell you this. The doubt would erect only at the time of performing the tawaf. It doesn't happen when the person have already fulfilled the ceremonies of Hajj, the rites of Hajj or Umrah, they left. unless if shaitan wants to mess up his mind and make him feel uncomfortable and so on. If at the time of performing your Hajj or your Umrah, you were certain that you did 7 rounds, and those who were along with you were sure that you just done 7 rounds, then اقطع الشك باليقين. Consider that you've done 7 rounds and ignore that completely. Any frustrations, any suspicion.
Is this a principle that we're talking about here?
Yes. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم said دع ما يريبك إلى ما لا يريبك. Leave alone what puts you in doubt into that which you are certain from. Now, while I was involved in the ibadah, I was certain I done 7 rounds. خلاص, it's over. If somebody says, no, you did not, how did you know? Because I was with you. Why didn't you tell me right on the spot? You know? So if somebody tells me after I've done the tawaf and I did the sa'i, or I remembered after I've done the tawaf and I'm involved in the sa'i, oh, I just did 6, then I have to go back, resume. Either by making one more round from the Hajar al-Aswad corner, and once again I end up at Al-Hajar al-Aswad corner, or I may begin from the scratch, start over. Okay? But since, alhamdulillah, you were sure at the time of your tawaf that you've done 7, or otherwise, why didn't you realize that at the time? And you finish your ceremonies and you went home, then disregard any other doubts or frustrations that Satan may cast into your mind.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh, we had a question from Brother Abdul Aziz, and his first question, so we had 2, is about his name. He says, I've been using the name Aziz for several years instead of Abdul Aziz. He says, is this allowed for me to use this?
The name Abdul Aziz, or any name that begins by Abd, then followed by any of Allah's beautiful names and attributes, are amongst the most beloved names to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after Abdullah or Abdul Rahman. When you name somebody or you call just somebody Aziz by itself, which means dignified person or mighty person, there is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Because there is no conflict of interest between Aziz and Al-Aziz. Al-Aziz is only Allah the Almighty. Al-Aziz means the Almighty God. So as long as it's not in its definite form with Al-Alif wal-Lam, then there is no problem. Al-Aziz, Al-Hakeem, or any of the beautiful names with Al, then that's Allah. And no one should name himself with these names with the definite form, with Al. But in the indefinite, Hakeem, wise, Aziz, Alim, that's perfectly okay.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, got a second question from Brother Abdul Aziz. It's about his father. He says that my mother and father have been separated for several years. He said, I haven't told my father exactly what I'm studying in my college. I'm studying science, and he thinks I'm studying a totally different subject, which he's agreed to. My mother says it's okay, you don't have to tell him that you're studying something else, but he thinks that he'll be quite upset. He says, me obeying my mother and disobeying my father here, I'm not telling him because I'm staying with my mother and I don't stay with my father. Is this a sin upon me?
You shouldn't have done that. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, As-sidq, or telling the truth, honesty leads to righteousness. Al-bir. Then righteousness leads to paradise. And al-kadhib, or lying, leads to wickedness. And wickedness leads to fire, to the fire of hell. And a man will tell the truth and will continue to tell the truth until it becomes his trait, until he enters paradise. And the opposite is true. Now, you began by saying that I did not tell my father. If he did not inquire about it, that's perfectly fine. But if he inquired about it and you deceived him and you made him under the impression that you're studying art while you're studying chemistry or science or whatever, and you know that that would upset your father, that's a sin. Because your father do have rights on you similar to your mother exactly. And you must obey them both. What if there is a conflict of interest? You can come out of this conflict between the parents by just saying the truth. And now I turn to the parents with a friendly advice. Let your children study what they feel like. Some parents, especially in our Western Muslim countries, impose on their children to study certain subjects, particularly if you're from this part of the world, you have to become an MD. But he's not into science. He's into art. I mean, literatures, teaching, or being an engineer, or being whatever. Not necessarily a dentist or an MD. But the parents' mentality is set up this way, that he has to be a doctor. If not a doctor, then at least a dentist or a pharmacist, so that he can make that much money. This mentality should be corrected. There is something called tendency and feeling. This like eating and drinking. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he was offered a dab, a huge lizard, a desert animal, which is lawful to consume in Islam. Khalid ibn al-Walid loved it so much, but he saw the Prophet ﷺ abstain from eating. He said, Ya Rasulullah, is it prohibited? Should I stop eating it? He said, no, but it was not common in my family that we used not to eat that. He did not want to say, I don't like it. He never said to any food, I dislike it. But I'm not used to it. It's a matter of feeling. So somebody doesn't want to eat fish. Don't force him to eat fish until he throws up. Somebody doesn't like chemistry, doesn't like art. Don't force them to study anything. Excuse me. Anything against their will, against their tendency, only because you wanted them to do this way, so to shape their future. There is a difference between that and something else. When the children or the child or the son wants to study something prohibited, you know, carving statues, drawing nude humans and all of that, at that parents have to step in. That's their responsibility and say, no. Learning anything that's prohibited is prohibited as well. But within the area of permissible, then let your children choose with your direction and help, and do not split them apart. Your son now is suffering because he wants to please both of them. And this is once again one of the disadvantages and the drawbacks of divorce, where the children suffer the most. They want to please both, but unfortunately each one of the parents wants to have the children just for themselves.
They're caught in the middle, basically.
They are caught in the middle. They don't know what to do. And we have so many problems due to that. And the children ask, what can I do? And by the end, it develops into their hearts and minds some psychological problems, which we did not have to go through it from the beginning.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. I've got two questions from brother Adam from Nigeria. The first, he says, I have a friend who is a non-Muslim and he's invited me to his birthday anniversary. Am I allowed to go attend this anniversary, Shaykh?
Not just if he's a non-Muslim, even if brother Jamil invites you, tell him that we don't recognize a birthday. The birthday issue, in my consideration, is one of the most amazing conflicts. Very controversial. Why? When somebody tells me that you're today 36, 37, 38, 39, oh my God, what does it mean? It only means one thing. You're getting closer. To what? If I know that I'm getting closer to the championship, if I know that I'm getting closer to graduation, to enter in paradise, I will be very delighted. I can't wait. I will celebrate every moment passes by. But the reality is totally the opposite. I'm getting closer to the end of my term, which could be tomorrow or the day after. It could be sooner or later. But whatever passed from my life is by minus, is deducted from my account. Look at it this way. You have a bank balance of $100,000. Do you really celebrate every time you spend $1,000 of it? Knowing that you only now have 99, 89, 70, 50,000, 40,000? Oh, now you're more careful. Why? Because I just have the limited amount, the much which is very limited. So always, every time somebody discusses with you the issue of the birthday, examine it this way. And argue with them based on this, my personal argument. This is a personal argument, that I can't celebrate a birthday because I know that I'm getting closer to my term. What should be celebrated in that? I should be more concerned. I should sit and examine my record. What did I do good? And how much account do I have? Did I pile up enough good deeds? Oh no, then I have to catch up. I do have to catch up. I think it was one of our predecessors and the righteous people who met somebody, Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, may Allah have mercy on him, met somebody, and he asked him, how old are you? He said, 60. He said, oh my God, you've been traveling for 60 years? You're about to reach. You're about to arrive. He made the man cry. He understood it. He understood that you're actually traveling a certain distance and you're getting close. That's your life. So he said, oh Imam, what am I supposed to do? He was like in a coma. He was unconscious. And this word woke him up. What should I do? He said, well, fear Allah and keep your duty to Him. In the remaining part, Allah will take care of the part which is left, which is gone, which you have spent. Allah will erase the sins of the past if you take care of the rest. So that should be the reminder of every day that passes by, every sunset, that day tells you, oh poor man, that was from your account. Be careful.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, we had a second question from Brother Adam. He's asking about destiny. He says, I've read some ahadith on destiny, and it's confused me on this issue of destiny, especially a hadith in An-Nawawi's collection of 40 hadith, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about destiny. He says the concept of destiny is something which is confusing. Can you just shed some light on this?
Well, it's not confusing, and it shouldn't be confusing at all. Right now you're watching Ask Huda. Why? Because you know that it is aired on that time, every, let's say, Tuesday and Friday. Okay? So in your mind, you figured out that it should be aired, unless if there is something wrong, right? And that's why you prepare yourself and you spend some time to watch it. Does that mean that you force us to air it on that time? No, but it has become a routine. Does it really mean that you know the unseen? No, but because there is a routine and your knowledge is very limited and you grasp on this idea because of the routine. Similarly, when I ask you about your 3 or 4 children, where is so and so? And you know that it is Asr time and he's very right, you say, you must be in the masjid. And another person, he's wicked, oh, must be playing. What if they are in the same place and praying? But you made this judgment based on your pre-idea about them both. لِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. Allah has the best example, and we're not giving a parable to Allah or giving an example to Allah. I'm just making it get closer to your mind and understanding, not to get confused concerning the decree. The particular hadith, it is true, it is the 4th hadith of the 40 Nawawi hadith, narrated by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu arda, and this hadith is highly sound hadith, collected by Bukhari and Muslim. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, indeed the creation of any of us, or any of you, if every mankind, is brought together in the womb of his mother in 40 days, nutfa. Nutfa, which is sexual discharge of both the male and the female, in the womb of his mother. Then in for a like period, another 40 days, alaqa, which is a hanging blood clot. Then mudgha, a morsel of flesh, for a like period, another 40 days. Then after the 120 days, the 3 stages, there comes the angel who is appointed with the womb. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands him to breathe the soul into the fetus, becomes life. Then he orders him with the following 4 words to be ordained for this person. بِكَتْبِ رِزْقِهِ وَأَجَلِهِ وَعَمَلِهِ وَشَقِيٍّ أَوْ سَعِيدٍ. Now I want you to remember the first 2 examples that I gave. The angel is going to write according to Allah's dictation and what Allah ordains to him. Write his livelihood, his lifespan, and his deeds, and whether he will be happy or enriched, or be rich or upset or displeased or amongst the dwellers of fire. Well, that covers everything in the person's life. But not to tell you that you were forced to do what's right and you were forced to do what's wrong. Rather, to tell you that calm down and accept Allah's decree. Do not cry for any loss, because it was already preordained. Rather, just say, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Or say, إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. That means Allah the Almighty created us. And He knew beforehand, 50,000 years before He created us, that Jamil will be sitting with Muhammad and presenting this episode right now. Right? He allowed us to execute this plan. He did not force us to do it. But nothing happens in the universe without His leave and without His permission. The last part of the hadith, which is very scary, which is a part maybe confusing you, that by Allah, in whose hand is my soul, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, one of you would behave like the people of paradise until there is only an arm's length between him and in it, to enter it. Then he changes and acts according to the acts of the people of fire, and he enters fire. And the rest of the hadith is the opposite of this example. So people are scared that we work our entire life, then by the end, because of just misdoings, we enter fire. No, this is not the right understanding of the hadith. The understanding of the hadith is explained in other narrations. يَعْمَلُ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ, as it appears to people. He pretended to be righteous, but in reality, that did not settle in his heart. He was showing off, he was acting, but his reality would come to appearance and to be concealed right before his death. I do believe that we need to have further elaboration on this hadith through another hadith which is narrated by Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha ardaha, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ahabba liqa Allah, ahabba Allahu liqa'ah." So to have the discussion, inshallah, in another episode, I leave you right there. وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for all the answers today. Well, that's all the time we have with your emails. And please do send your emails at ask@huda.tv. Well, until next time, I leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.